That predates me looking at the here. That was a weird, it was in San Francisco.
I just need to.
Like the opposite of almost everything.
Good morning, everyone. We're back in regular session. Commission pulled out of executive session or went into executive session to discuss legal matters. No decisions were made. We're back into regular session. We're gonna continue our agenda for February 11, 2025. I want to say welcome to those of you who've joined us since an hour and a half ago. We're now at item number 2 on the agenda, PSC elections. Are there any nominations for chairman?
Motion.
With Commissioner Raymond Williams.
I move that we continue.
Nominate?
I'm not nominating. I'm making a motion to nominate both chairman, the existing chair, Pedro Williams, to continue for another term, and David Hughes as vice chair. So move.
Second.
Motion.
Commissioner Laura Nichols Sams, I second that move.
All right. We have a motion that's been seconded for twice. So there's no discussion. Roll call.
Roll call, Commissioner Clement McGrath,
Yes.
Commissioner Lauren Nichols Sams,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymond Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner David Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Pedro Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have 5 voting yea, no nays. The motion is carried unanimously.
All right, so thank you very much to my fellow commissioner on behalf of the vice chairman and myself. Your vote of confidence and all the hard work begins. All right, so we move to item number 3 on the agenda, consent agenda. Who speaks to that?
Good morning, Brenda Connor, Accounts Maintenance Officer. Today, staff recommends the commission to enter assessments on the following docket. Docket 556, Vitelco Universal Service Fund, $480. Docket 589, Choice Vitelcom Application for ETC Certification, $480. Docket 669, Broadband DI, ETC Certification, $1,384.21. Docket 670, Liberty and AT&T Application for ETC Certification, $480. Docket 702, WAPA LIAC, $18,342.10. Docket 703, WAPA Deferred Energy, $1,710.53. And docket 704, Global Connections Incorporated of America doing business as Stand Up Wireless, $6,500.
Is there a motion?
I move that the consent agenda be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There are none. Roll call.
Roll call, Clement McGrath,
Yes.
Lauren Nichols Sams,
Yes.
Raymond Williams, Raymond Williams,
I don't see him.
David Hughes,
Yes.
Pedro Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Record
we
my
have
vote
4.
as yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we have 5 voting yea. The motion is carried unanimously.
All right, thank you. Item number 4, ferry companies. Docket 691. Who speaks to that?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead. Attorney Swain.
we had a filing some time ago. Let me back up the coherent explanation on the record. We opened docket 691 about 2 years ago regarding the rate investigation into the franchise ferries. On behalf of the ferries, Attorney Hodge made a filing in 2023 regarding changes in the applicable law regarding the franchise ferries that are distinct from the regulatory regime applied to all other regulated utilities. The biggest issue on that is the use of the term fair use value, and the other one is the rate of return that those companies are entitled to. Under standard regulatory practice, the value of assets used in the operation of the regulated utility is based on the book value, the actual price paid for the asset, and then it's booked and depreciated in a straight line depreciation across time. A fair use value would be one where you would have any remaining value of that asset after it has been fully depreciated remain on the books and be entitled to a return on the value of that market value of the assessment of the asset. In the case of the ferries, that applies in at least 2 areas of some concern. How it will apply is an issue regarding the use of the boats that are owned by the franchise ferries and whether those vessels are in fact being used in the operation of the regulated government utility. And the second area is the use of the government-owned vessels, the Red Hook 1, Cruise Bay 1, and the pending lease of a new vessel. We are not recommending that the commission needs to make a decision on any of those issues today. And then the second issue is the 8 to 10% rate of return. The standard language in the Public Services Commission's authorizing statute is a 6 to 8% rate of return, subject to findings based on the evidence for a rate of return outside of those ranges being appropriate. The commission in the past has found rates of return outside of the 6 to 8% appropriate in certain industries at certain times. But the presumption here has changed from 6 to 8 to 8 to 10. The commission at your last meeting appointed Jed John Hope as a hearing examiner for a rate investigation. In the course of the coming month, we are recommending that our hearing examiner sit down with PSC staff and the franchise ferries and develop a scope of the documents and procedures for the rate investigation. These issues are ones that should be fully explored and evidence submitted, and testimony submitted in the course of that rate investigation. So we are not recommending a resolution of those issues today. We're identifying those issues for the benefit of the public and the ongoing rate investigation. Wanted to get this clear and that is all moving forward with the hearing examiner's appointment and the opening of that rate investigation.
Thank you, Attorney Spring. Any questions from the commissioners?
I see Maria Hodge is present. I don't know if she has any comments. I don't see a hand raised, but.
Attorney Hodge, do you wish to be heard?
Well, Mr. Chairman, as long as Attorney Sprain is not recommending the commission take any action, I don't know that I need to address anything with the commission today.
Very well, thank you. Yeah. Anybody hand raised, Ms. Combs?
No.
All right, thank you. Move on to item number 5. Telecommunications, docket 669, broadband VI. Speak to that issue.
I believe on the petition for interconnection, we have both WAPA and broadband VI present.
Right.
Identify yourselves for the record and raise your right hands to be sworn.
Dion Sinclair, General Counsel for WAPA.
Luis Memphis, I'm a Senior Manager for Regulatory Affairs for Colombia.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you will be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
wants to go first? Mr. Luis?
Well, it is broadband BI's petition, but if I may.
If it's okay with broadband.
Okay.
I don't mind.
Right. I think we appear before you today in the spirit of collaboration. Broadband, formerly Liberty, first reached out to WAPA for access to the polls. At that time, it was about 2023, and there was no understanding really of what infrastructure remains following the storms, what was attached to the infrastructure, and what could be safely placed onto the grids, onto the poles and onto the grid. The authority had undergone a solicitation for a vendor to conduct a GIS study for that very reason, to let us know the remaining poles that were within the system, what was on those poles, and what could be attached. That information had been communicated to Liberty, but they, of course, under their own funding structure, had time constraints. We did try to have a portion with a specific, cadre of poles that were needed. And we did relate that the study that we had predated the storm and it really could not be used. We had initially tried to address the poles that were identified, but then found after a study of some 100 poles, that at least half of those that were selected for attachment no longer existed. So it really pointed to the need for this study to be conducted. We then tried to align the study going forward with the design that Liberty had in terms of what portion of poles would be needed first. There was work done in Anna's retreat last year where the study and the work from Liberty did align, and we were able to get those done and assess and make ready work done and attachments occur. We are now working to see if we can identify vendors. We have some selected who can now work simultaneously to get those assessments done in a more expeditious fashion, because there was some difficulty in selecting a vendor who can do the breadth of poles required in the time required. So I think that we have found a resolution for that, and just having, more than one work at one time to get that done, within the framework of what is needed. So as we sit here today, we are finalizing a pole attachment agreement with now Broadband BI. And we are also finalizing the vendors in order to initiate the work that's needed in a rather expedited fashion.
Of course, the $1 million question is, what's the time frame? When will you have something done?
I communicated a follow-up on one of the vendors to Liberty this morning. Just the way their response, depending on that response, that vendor at least can initiate their work by next week. I would expect that the additional vendors would be able to mobilize soon thereafter. This one particular vendor is already on island, so that situation is different, and it would be able to commence work much, at a faster rate.
So what's the time frame for concluding the agreement with broadband?
The agreement with broadband, and there's an interim agreement, but the permanent agreement with broadband, we're trying to conclude that this week.
By Friday, February 14, 2025, no later than 11:59 p.m.
We are making every effort to have that signed and finalized this week.
Mr. Luis?
Yes.
Luis?
I think Ms. Sinclair's background is accurate. And we understand, we always understood the constraints that WAPA has operated under. When we filed this petition for relief, for intervention from the PSC, really it was because of a real concern we had that this had been going on for several years, right? It was a long period in which we tried to obtain access to WAPA pole infrastructure and we were unable. And we understand, right? And I understand Ms. Sinclair's, Attorney Sinclair's background. But that was a concern. As you know, access to pole is an integral part of us being able to comply with FCC milestones, deployment milestones. This year, aerial build is really a top priority for us. So to the extent we are unable to access pole infrastructure, it'll absolutely impact our capacity to move forward. And that's the pressure we were operating under. Conversations were very productive last week. We had several meetings with WAPA. I agree we have a document with which we feel comfortable. There's still issues regarding costing that we need to fine tune. I would say costing has been a pressure point. And I'm being fully transparent here, has been a pressure point since the very beginning of the negotiations. We understand that prices certainly do not correlate with the mainland US market, which is understandable, but do not correlate with other markets in the Caribbean either. So that's a concern we have, right? Despite that, I think we've made progress in the conversations and we're moving towards something that I think is mutually beneficial. So I do agree that by the end of this week, we could have something that is final and mutually agreeable.
That's good to hear. Any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I have one. When does your 30-day window, when is your 30-day extension over that the FCC gave you?
March 31st. For the 40% deployment milestone, the FCC granted an extension until March 31st, 2025, and it requested comment on the possibility of extending that extension until December 31st, 2025.
Does it require any accomplishments within that time period in order to get the other extension?
I'm sorry. Okay, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Does it require any other accomplishment for you to get the additional extension to December?
Well, no, not accomplishments on BROPAC BI's side. Really, the FCC is hearing comment from other interested parties to get the opinion of the market on whether it should or shouldn't be extended until December 31st.
Are you asking the PSC to enter this discussion with FCC or offer comments?
Not formally. This is not something I have consulted with the business, but obviously our position is that an extension until December 31st would allow us to comply fully with the 40% deployment milestone. That is now towards March 31st.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sams? Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Raymond Williams?
No questions.
Staying with the pole attachment interconnection item for just a second. We love stipulated agreements. We really hope you guys can get there and in the time frame that the chairman has suggested to you. I would like that agreement submitted to the Public Services Commission for their approval and for filing. We have a policy interest. You're not the only telecommunications company in the territory, and the authority is fully regulated. We'd like that agreement submitted for approval when you're able to stipulate your own agreement, please.
As soon as that's a yes.
As long as it's treated confidentially, I have. My concern is that these should be treated confidentially, and some of the provisions in the agreement are
You can make that
confidential
request.
in nature.
You can make that request with this on Council does it all the time.
Our consideration is that there be a certain amount of uniformity in this interconnection issue. We've really never taken it on as a commission, but it's in the public interest that a public asset be treated fairly for all those that access it. So we're going to take I can't speak for the rest of the commissioners, I'm going to take a greater interest in this particular agreement because I think it's formative to the next person down the line.
I don't think we have an objection with respect to the interconnection agreement itself. With respect to the fees, some of that, the ability to have a certain range is done because of the numbers involved in this agreement. So with respect to that, I join where Attorney Mendes and that concern.
When you, I'm trying to be sensitive to the issues of confidentiality, but when you submit this agreement, it'll be docketed, and we'd love to know the justification for the agreement that you reached, because then we don't have to do the homework necessarily. Perhaps you have in terms of market and stipulated cost, keeping in mind that the commission, not the authority, has statutory authority over pole interconnections in this territory and the pricing thereof. Happy to have you guys present your stipulated agreement. The commission has authority over pole attachments in the territory, including their pricing. So.
And again, just to reiterate, once you make your submittal, you can explain anything that you want to bring to our attention, that you want us to be aware of the justification as to why these are the prices of this is what we're doing. That's entirely up to you.
Not saying, Attorney Sinclair, that we'll get involved, just making the case we can, and we will if we feel it's necessary. So.
Okay. And just obviously understanding when the fees are passed through in nature, the authority has no ability to control that. So.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to submit to us, sir?
No, my second.
And any other
We also had on
that
here,
item?
I'm sorry, beyond the petition for interconnection, we have on here the FCC's grant of extension and the implications of that. I'm looking for an explanation from Broadband VI as to what their current plans are for the build out, how they're proceeding, and their annual status report.
Chairman Williams, I just want to remind the testifiers that they have to speak up because we have the court reporter online. So you have to speak up so she can get all the information. Okay, thank you.
They're really good microphones. You don't have to be really loud, but you do have to be loud.
But if I can't hear you well, she's gonna have to prosecute. But just to be honest.
Good morning. State your right
Morning.
hands to be sworn, please.
My name is John Santiago, Associate Manager for Regulatory Affairs for Liberty VI.
Ravindra Mewala, General Manager for Liberty VI.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony and the evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
So good morning, commissioners. Congrats on your reappointment as chair and vice chair. So last time we were here in December, we informed the commission of the petition. At that point, it was a petition for a waiver that we had submitted to the FCC in late October, based on our conclusion that by the end of December, by the end of December 31st, we would not reach the 40% deployment milestone that was due for 2024. And on December 20th, I think it was about 10 days or 9 days after the public PSC meeting, the FCC in fact did issue the waiver, or rather it's more an extension of the milestone, of the deployment milestone that my colleague already explained is until March 31st, 2025, currently. And so it was a partial grant of the request that we made in late October, with the possibility of a full extension of that 40% deployment milestone to December 31st, contingent on a public comment process. I do want to clarify that I do believe that the formal window in that public comment process has closed. That does not obviously forbid the PSC from engaging with the FCC and giving it its perspective. So right now we are in the we are awaiting basically an FCC decision on that further extension. The waiver itself, which was granted on December 20th, basically makes a number of conclusions based on our petition. It concludes that the waiver was granted due to delays in obtaining permits from the USBI Department of Public Works and pole attachment agreements from the Water and Power Authority, which we just discussed. The FCC also underscored its commitment to enforcing the necessary milestones and all other pertinent rules to the Connect USBI initiative. So at the same time that it granted us flexibility, it also required or demanded accountability. The waiver, as it stands, does not affect future milestones, other milestones that we have to meet. 60%, 80%, and obviously 100%. And the FCC also acknowledged, that some delays are unavoidable and that it has granted similar extensions in the past to other grantees. Based on that, it granted the partial extension. It opened the public comment process. We received some comments, one comment from BIA, and we replied to that in due course.
Commissioner McGrath, any questions?
Yes, what was VIA's position on the extension?
Well, as you can imagine, VIA opposed the extension.
On what grounds?
So VIA made a couple of points. I'm summarizing here, but one of them is that we did not plan well, basically, in preparation, basically, for the Connect to USBI initiative. In our reply, we responded to that. We responded to the plans and preparations that we did immediately after receiving support in summer of 2021. And also we detailed the unforeseeable delays that occurred during the deployment, which are obviously unforeseeable, right, by definition. VIA also includes an argument about they say that we should have focused our deployment more on undergrounding, and that way we could have avoided the WAPA issues, but that sort of, well, first of all, it ignores the other issues related to DPW that we had detailed in the petition and which were further explained in the reply to VIA. And, I think in arguing that it's somehow easier to deploy underground infrastructure, they ignore their own strategy, which is to focus on aerial fiber, right? So we replied to that as well, and they also argued that they should keep the transitional support that they have been receiving from the FCC in case that we do not. That we cannot meet our deployment milestones, et cetera. So it was a number of points that we replied to in due course. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Stamps?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Raymond Williams?
No question.
Commissioner Hughes?
So the strategy, at least to get to this 40%, seems to have pivoted a little bit to try and get on the polls quicker and easier. And I hope you're successful in doing that with Attorney Sinclair. Are we making any progress with Department of Public Works on the underground delays? What's the status of that portion of your project? Has it gotten better? Is it still the same?
So it's,
Yeah, of course.
so it's gotten a lot better. Last year, sorry.
Repeat your name for the court reporter.
Thank you. Ravindra Mewala, General Manager, Liberty VI. Last year, we were able to work with the DPW to streamline a process and have regular meetings. Since we started that process, the requirements for permits that are being submitted has become a lot clearer. We get a better understanding as to what you're looking for. There are, ongoing developments and additional requirements as we go down the line. But the key is, as we're discussing and meeting on a weekly basis, these things are ironed out. So the process itself has gotten better. And we have, in past, prior to last year, I know the team had made, a request of, is there some sort of a checklist that we need to follow when submitting these permits, or can we have regular meetings? Those things, for most part, are now behind us with these weekly meetings, and we continue to work with them, with the Commissioner Gabriel and his team, to overcome any other challenges that we encounter along the way as we are rolling that.
I also do want to underscore that, by December 31st, 2024, we did surpass 9,200 locations. We reached more than that, which was had we not received the waiver, that would have been like the worst year of non-compliance. We weren't facing that situation, even had we not received that waiver. And right now, we are working constructively with the agencies, and we're also focusing our deployment in densely populated areas where we have our infrastructure close, where we have VINGN's infrastructure close, which we are working closely with as well. Aside from the aerial strategy, there are other things that we're getting into play.
So shortly, we're going to hear from Waste Management, and we're going to listen to a presentation on the prudent replacement of the storm and wastewater management system. Huge project, very important project for the territory. And for lack of a better word, there's a task force that has been formed to coordinate those efforts with other interested parties, obviously Public Works, since we're going to be digging in the dirt, WAPA, because they have the water replacement component of that as well. Are you guys participating in that task force right now? Do you have a representative in that group?
The utility meeting, we have team members aware of that. The project that's about to start in St. Croix, we've submitted our plans already. So the idea is, as the earth is open, we go in and put our conduits.
So to the extent that we're going to actually finally do dig once in this territory, you guys are involved?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So during how long was the comment period?
I think it closed, Commissioner, on January 14th, if my memory serves me correct. And then there was a reply comment period of 7 days until the 21st.
You said it closed on January 14th?
Yes.
When was it open?
I don't recall. That I don't recall.
Your best guess, how long? Was it 30 days, 60 days?
I think it was about a two week process, but I don't remember. The waiver itself was granted, I remember, on the 20th of December. I don't recall if the public comment process was immediately opened, but it was closed on January 14th.
And how was that advertised? How were people notified that there was this comment period?
It is, so the FCC waiver decision is a public decision that gets picked up by wires that basically monitor like communications news, and that gets thrown out in different like email chains to different providers, etc. Yeah. So it is. I think I've seen some news that have been forwarded to me from the media team about like, for example, like comments submitted, and because it is all public, so it gets picked up by these waters, right?
But you didn't put out any notice to the public that there was this public comment period relative to your request?
We did not, no.
That we think that's something you should have done?
Well, we didn't think of it. We had no regulatory or legal obligation to do so. And again, it is advertised by other private parties, and it is a public process by the FCC. So.
I would just suggest for future reference that that's something you may want to consider, that the entity put out a public notice.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, any other questions by commissioners? And it's good to know that, you're making some headway with public works in terms of trying to get your permission. All right, is there a comment on your construction and build-out report? I'm looking at the agenda. All right, if there's nothing else, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a good day.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move to item number 6, waste management matters, docket 705. Waste management petition for reconsideration, FY 2025. Who speaks to that matter?
Can we request a brief, just like a 3-minute, they're on the way, because they left and they're trying to come back, Commissioner, please.
They
Chair.
left.
They were told they were to come back at 1, and now they're all on the way back. I think we just need about 4 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we can do in the meantime.
I don't think.
Could do a call for new business and get
Yeah, but I was trying to figure out.
I'll be in touch with you about the TRS.
You're gonna go find me. Yeah, where on the agenda? Thank you. Okay.
Commissioners Williams, commissioners, are you all still there?
Commissioner McGrath is here.
I'm here.
Commissioner Laura Nichols Shams is here.
I'm here.
Great. Well, I thought I'd fill a couple, 3 minutes of dead time here with something that's going to come up in relation to waste management and the presentation we're about to receive. There is this task force that was just alluded to by the gentleman from Liberty. I think it's fairly important and actually a very efficient use of our resources, that rather than bring these public utilities into the commission after the fact, that we actually appoint or ask staff to find us a consultant who's got some experience in wastewater and stormwater and some power matters to sit as a representative of the PSC on this task force. It can be an observer. I don't particularly think we need to vote on anything, but I think it'd be a great use of our time to actually have our representative be able to brief us instead of having to ad hoc ask these questions on the off chance that the utilities might be in front of us on any given month. I broached that topic with both the governor and with Mr. Griffith, the director from Waste Management. I didn't hear any objections. I haven't asked Director Knight, but I think that that'd be a really simple way for us to keep in the loop on probably the largest single project in the territory for the next several years in terms of infrastructure. And I just wanted to present that for thoughts for my fellow commissioners, because unless I hear great objections from you guys, I'm gonna make that motion after the waste management matters. Anybody got any thoughts on?
I think that's a great idea. This is Commissioner Laura Nichols Sams. Thanks, Dave.
Now, Commissioner, who are you recommending, is it?
I'm sorry, Rem?
I didn't hear, you said you were recommending someone to.
I'm not going to make that recommendation here in session, but I do think it needs to be someone with, obviously with wastewater experience, and that's gonna be a short list in the territory. Again, this is an observer role. I'm not expecting to get in anybody's hair with our guy, but I do want to get firsthand information on this project, because I think this project is so incredibly important and needs to be done, well thought out and done correctly with participation of all possible parties. We might be that agency that says, hey, there's a party absent here that we also would like to have involved. The big players are obviously already in the room.
Noted.
Not going to make a recommendation, Randy. Not today.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner McGrath, any thoughts? Chair?
Just wondering if you might have anyone in mind who might have that expertise.
I do, but I'm going to let staff handle that, not try and front run that. So,
Is this going to be on a contract basis or voluntary or what?
well, it will not be voluntary to be a paid consultant. The question the chair whispered to me immediately was, who's going to pay for that? I think we'll have to add it pro rata to general assessments, but I don't think it's going to be particularly expensive. It's one individual attending meetings.
I mean, my concern also is, you're gonna hire folks, you wanna be in a position to pay them. Hopefully the entities that is being assessed against will in fact pay the bill. But we don't get a bad name.
I think, Director Griffith is here.
Thank you, Chair.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, item number 6, docket number 705, waste management petition for reconsideration FY 2025. Who speaks to that matter?
I believe I do first, Chair. The Waste Management Authority filed a petition for reconsideration of its annual assessment this year. The commission granted that reconsideration would be heard. Gonna be up in a moment. The rehearing was granted. A scheduling order was sent in November. Subsequent briefing was submitted by the Waste Management Authority and responded to by the Public Services Commission. No rebuttal was filed. At the time of the scheduling order, it was ordered that all the evidence and information would be provided in the briefings filed in advance. No new evidence would be permitted here. I understand that Attorney Kahuga wishes to make an oral argument today and has a couple of presentation slides she wishes to use or information. I have no objection to the slides that she provided. Up to the commission if you wish to hear oral argument at this point.
Attorney Kahuga? You may be heard.
Morning, everyone. Pursuant to Title
Can
30.
you state your name and spell it for the court reporter, please?
Very
She's
well.
online.
And please speak up. We're broadcasting this.
Florence Kahugu, Legal Counsel for Waste Management, along with me, Yolanda Sanderson, Paralegal for Waste Management.
You may proceed.
Okay. Pursuant to Title 30, VIC, Section 33, petitions for reconsideration of PSC's order should be filed within 30 days of issuance, and the PSC's order Therefore, the Virgin Islands Waste Management is in compliance with the aforementioned procedural process and timeline, and is the Public Service Commission order was received on September 18, 2024, and Waste Management petition for reconsideration was filed October 18, 2024. The VI Waste Management Authority is certain that this commission had yet another opportunity to review the petition for reconsideration, and we are confident the commission will make the correct determination this time around. The VI Waste Management petition speaks for itself, and its pertinent legal argument in the petition should guide the commission today in its decision, and it's our hope that the commission, as a guardian of the utility agencies, will not lock all the doors as in the past, but rather lead and guide waste management and open the correct door. The issue before the commission today is to determine whether Public Service Commission should be utilizing Government of the Virgin Islands appropriations and special allocation funds to the Virgin Islands Waste Management Authority to calculate its annual assessment fees owed by the Virgin Islands Waste Management Authority. The answer is unequivocally no. And it beggars belief as to why PSC, a sister agency of the Virgin Islands government, would choose to use its platform to engage in 20 years of misguided and wrong reasoning that the government appropriation and special allocation funds is revenue for the purpose of calculation of its annual fees. The government appropriation and special allocation fund are technically donations from the government. To call these funds revenue is trying to turn apples into oranges. To discuss the issue and to get the answers of the current issue, we turn to the Virgin Islands Code. The Virgin Islands Code clearly provides that the exact formula or GPS, Chairman, and a step-by-step process in calculation of PSC's annual fees. The formula does not include appropriations of special allocation funds that are received to assist Virgin Islands Waste Management with payments of bills and providing services to the Virgin Islands and to pay for the vendors. Any diversion from this decision and agreement or any decisional agreements by PSC or any other agency together is a clear violation of the statute and is illegal. Such a diversion is a violation of the statute and doesn't matter, or what I mean is 20 years, notwithstanding of PSC's continued practice. Title 30's VIC 25A, C, and D is clear on its face and provides that the annual fees for a particular public utility shall be amount of the product of commissioners' current year assessment and the public's revenue ratio. The revenue ratio of a public utility shall be equal to its gross operating revenue divided by the territorial gross operating revenue. The executive director of the commission shall, prior to September 1st of each year, calculate each public utility's fees under this section, and after approval by the commission, shall notify each public utility of the amount due. The commission shall, prior to August 1st of each year, submit a report to the Committee on Finance of the legislature detailing the total amount of appropriations needed by the commission for the following fiscal year. We don't have any issue, and I believe the commission does not have any issue. PSC does not have issue as to how the statute is written. The issue comes on what we call reading is fundamental, and that's where we differ. on the interpretation of the statute. Let us now turn as a team apply the statute that I just read to our facts and issue in an attempt to resolve this matter as a team today. I direct the commission to the two charts previously submitted by the Virgin Islands Waste Management. I also ask for the charts to be published, Chair.
Do we have the ability to do that, Ms. Gomes?
Yes, which one would you like to share first?
I would like to share the error.
Okay.
Public Service Commission annual fees calculation error.
Mr. Chair, can you ask the testifier to speak up a little louder? Thank you.
I think she heard you.
The one that said corrected or the?
The error.
Calculations error that you.
Very well. Ask this commission to take a look at the chart that the Waste Management Authority, Virgin Island Waste Management Authority took the liberty to try to make it into something tangible that will help us both to reach an agreement. So this is a statute and it's broken down into sections. So the first section talks about PSC annual fees. How do you get PSC annual fees? The PSC annual fees, that's the first box, PSC annual fees. How do we get to that? According to the statute, we must first use PSC's total current year assessment, and we multiply that with Virgin Island Waste Management revenue ratio. How do we obtain the revenue ratio? The revenue ratio of waste management is obtained through.
Mr. Chair, I beg your indulgence.
Yes, Commissioner Williams.
I see that there's a chart up on the screen, but I can't follow because I don't know if the attorney is going from top to bottom, or I don't understand what what's made.
So I'm starting from the top. The first box says PSC annual fees. You could start from the bottom too. We come to the same results, but I'm gonna start from the top because that's the annual fee. How are we supposed to calculate the annual fees per statute?
Excuse me, this is Commissioner Laura Nichols Sams. I don't think we're able to see the bottom of the chart on the screen.
That's correct.
Seems like there's something missing on the bottom of the chart.
Statute.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe if there's a way to turn that document sideways, then we can see the full chart all at once.
I think when she gets here, she'll scroll down.
Right, this is it. We're still not seeing everything on the bottom.
There you go.
That's
it.
Thank you. We're going back to the top. We are talking about the annual fees. How do we collect the annual fees per statute? PSC's total current year assessment. That's the second box on the same line. You multiply that with waste management's revenue ratio. How do we obtain the revenue ratio from waste management? We take waste management's gross operating revenue and we divide it with PSC's territorial gross operating revenue. That means every agency's gross is combined by PSC, and they divide that with waste management's operating revenue. Now, here is the biggest issue. Waste management how do we obtain the gross operating revenue? That's the orange box. How do we get that? That's the big question we have to answer today. Gross operating revenue of any agency or any company is the past statute, the Virgin Island Waste Management interterritorial regulated operations. That means St. Croix, St. John, St. Thomas, and Water Island combined. Whatever fees waste management obtains from solid waste, from electronic waste, from wastewater, we combine that, and that's what PSC regulates. That's where PSC helps us. End of the story. The problem is PSC has taken the amount that says at the bottom with a big cross, Virgin Islands appropriation special allocation from government. In this case, it's about 40 million, 40,741,292.73, and decided that money that was donated to waste management by government, because we don't make any money, to include it and act as if waste management made the 40 million. I wonder whether this decision is being made by people who live in this community. We go to chart number 2. They ask for publication, Chair.
This is the one that says corrected?
Yes, correct.
Oh.
Hot mic, hot mic.
That's the entire chart.
Thank you. So this second chart is a Virgin Islands Waste Management attempt to create a chart that will probably guide this commission into making the correct decision. And in this chart, I'm considering them as GPS. You can only get the information you put in. If you put information to go to Fortuna from the airport, you're not gonna be heading west. You're gonna be heading west. You're not gonna be heading east. If you put information to go to Red Hook, you're not gonna be heading west. You're gonna be heading east.
Mr. Chair, somebody needs to mute because I can't hear the presenter.
That's a discussion taking place outside of the building, to the best of our understanding. I think Ms. Reynolds went to try and tell them to keep the tone down. So we just have to bear with it.
Thank you.
So going back to this GPS, whatever information PSC puts in this GPS is what PSC gets. You put in the wrong information, you're gonna get the wrong directions. So here we go. Annual fees from waste management are collected through current year assessment, multiplied by waste management's revenue ratio. How do you obtain a revenue ratio? Revenue ratio is obtained by taking waste management gross operating revenue, dividing it with Commissioner PSC's gross operating revenue. And then you take the fees from waste management. That's what gives you the gross operating revenue. So you see, I drew a line to show that whatever comes from government as appropriation of special funds cannot be utilized. And you can change the label on it, you can do whatever you want, but that is not permitted by the statute. So I'm hoping this explanation will get to a team decision. And I submit to you today, ladies and gentlemen, that the 2007 PSC has, since 2007, PSC has had the wrong feedback on the GPS formula, and with the wrong information has been stuck at the same wrong destination. And I tell the commission today that 1 + 1, which is the previous chart, equals 11. That's the PSC calculation. According to the first chart, their adding up is showing 1 + 1 equals 11. However, I submit to you today, this chart from waste management shows 1 + 1 equals 2. We also no, the sun does not rise from the west and sets on to the east, and that the apples can never be oranges. Again, if you're heading to the airport, I'm using St. Thomas directions because I'm not familiar with St. Croix. I know if you're heading to Fortuna from the airport, you head west. If you're heading to Red Hook, you head east. That's what commission needs to do today. Under the same statute, the court has provided, and I'm sure we have more than 2 legal counsels in this team, has provided us a formula of how to do statute interpretation. And I'm sure all court counsels will agree with me who work for the government. In a statute interpretation and review, the legal system is guided by fundamental principles that when the language of a statute is clear, unambiguous, on its face, we must read and apply the plain language of the statute as its best reflection of the legislative intent. Why would the legislature give us funds or the government give us funds with the intention of allowing PSC to come back and take the funds from us and decide those are fees, they're used in regulations. You pay bills with them, you pay vendors, well, it becomes operational. It's part of your regulated operations. It makes no sense. And that's what you have to do. You have to look at the statute on its face. Legislature had no any other intent. And therefore we look at the statute interpretation has to be, it's clear and unambiguous. The plain meaning of the statute can only be controverted by showing of a clear, contrary legislative intent. I ask PSC to tell us today, what other intent did the legislature have in giving us the appropriations? Explain to this team the plain meaning of the statute can only be contravened by showing of clear, contrary legislative intent. What would be, I'm gonna let the acting or the interim CFO explain how he's gotten calls. We have a bill pending before the legislature. This is after 20 years that PSC should have corrected this. The legislature is concerned about PSC coming after us.
Can I stop sharing the chart now?
Yes, ma'am.
No, please leave it up.
Okay.
PSC has no showing of contrary legislative intent in against section 30, title 30, section 25, that VI must manage gross operating revenues includes revenues obtained from government. Any action taken by government agencies without law or through misconstruction of the statutory authority under which the action is taken is arbitrary and capricious. As an administrative arm of the government of the Virgin Islands, all PSC's assessment and calculations in the last 20 years for waste management have been flawed because the actions were taken without any authority of the law or upon misconstruction of the statutory authority under which its action were taken. Now I go back to PSC's response to waste management's motion for petition for reconsideration. In PSC's response to waste management petition for reconsideration, the opposing counsel argues that PSC was aware of the waste management's annual assessment since its creation. Furthermore, in a prior petition hearings, VI waste management petition for reconsideration, opposing counsel admitted that not only was PSC aware of the potential funding problems, but the PSC and I quote, alerted the legislature to the issue of the assessment of the authority as a potentially being problematic because it's a government entity and would not be fully funded through fees and charges, but that would get its revenue from sources including legislative appropriation. PSC justification for its continued stripping away of waste management appropriation and funding is that, and I quote from the opposing counsel's undated response to this waste management petition, No clear legislative policy has been enacted that overrides the statutory requirements of Title 30. This lack of action since 2004 by the legislature should have been a clear signal to PSC that the statute is clear on its face. The legislative intent was not to give the funds to waste management so that waste management can hand it over to PSC. The legislature has a duty to hand over any appropriation to PSC, not the other way. We are not given things to hand over to other agencies. In fact, under Title 30, Section 25D, it provides that the Commission shall, prior to August 1st of each year, submit a report to the Committee on Finance of the legislature detailing the total amount of appropriation needed by the Commission. So PSC has the authority by statute to report to the Committee on Finance how much appropriation they need. One has to wonder whether PSC has ever submitted a report of the total amount of the appropriation they needed. And if yes, whether that appropriation should be considered for all their arguments and purpose as obtained from PSC's regulated activities. In a previous order by PSC to waste management, the order attempted to further justify its action and the violation of the plain reading of the statute by claiming that the parties, PSC and waste management, met in the VI with the VI former director and her staff and agreed that the revenue received through the appropriation process to fund the regulated operations of the authority would be included in the annual assessment calculation. This statement should be shocking to any reasonable person and to this commission. Any such meetings or agreements against the VI code and public policy is not only null and void, but unlawful and unenforceable. Furthermore, any such action by PSC would be in bad faith, unconscionable, and manipulative move to take what was given to a sister agency in violation of the existing law and plain reading of the statute. It is also a breach of commission's fiduciary duty to utility agencies. While ignoring Title 30, Section 25A, the opposing counsel in his response states that Waste Management Authority cites no authority for asserting the appropriations should not be excluded from operation revenue. What more authority is needed? I ask this commission. Is the Virgin Island Code not sufficient? That is plain and clear, step-by-step GPS of the method to calculate the fees. Additionally, in his response, counsel then chooses to engage, for whatever reason, on the definition of non-operating revenue, as opposed to the term of the statute, operating revenue. In so doing, he attempts to define the non-operating revenue. He then proceeds to quote as his authority the Business Development Bank of Canada. He begs belief as to why, out of 50 states and its territory, along with the Black Law Dictionary, counsel turned to a Canadian Business Development Bank for guidance and definition. Well, when Canadian law and guidance may be counsel's preference, Canada is not yet part of federal jurisdiction, and the Canadian law and legal opinions have no standing and are invalid in the United States of America and the US Virgin Islands. With reference to the earmarking of various appropriation, PSC admits that, I quote, nearly all the identified funds were appropriated to pay the operating expenses of the authority. This statement is absolutely correct, and the key word is pay. The funds were earmarked by government to pay waste management bills in wastewater and solid waste activities. They are regulated activities, but the money paying the bills does not make the money originate from the activities. We perform the activities, but we have no money to pay, so we get the money to pay for them. For funds per statute were not derived from interterritorial revenue. The idea and perception that appropriations to pay operation expenses implies that appropriation become operating revenue is unfathomable, incredible, quite frankly distorted, and incapable of being fully explored or understood. Just to be clear, Waste Management has never argued that this body and the PSC Commission has no full operation of the Virgin Islands Authority, Virgin Island Waste Management Authority. That we have never argued that. Additionally, although PSC claims that it's entirely funded by assessment, Title 30 again provides for where this commission should submit its, whatever funds they need to the legislature. In conclusion, the Virgin Island Waste Management Authority wishes to remind the commission that in accordance to Title 29, Section 496, the VI Waste Management is a non-profit public body and autonomous instrumentality of the Virgin Islands government, whose purpose is to provide environmentally sound management for the collection and disposal of solid waste, including operations, closure of the landfills and wastewater collection, transport, treatment, and disposal of the territory. Pursuant to Title 30, Title 30, VIC, Section 2, public policy behind the creation of waste management was fundamentally based on the need to provide services, facilities with appropriate public health and reasonably safe, adequate services to the entire Virgin Islands community. That since its inception as public utility agency, VI Waste Management was never geared to be a money or a revenue generating agency. Although the agency has started some incredible measures through the interim executive director for some cost saving measures, the waste management continues to have financial struggles as there is not much income derived from the collection and disposal of solid waste and wastewater. That, as a consequence, any errors by PSC in their calculation of annual fees, it adds an additional and a burden for the waste management and violates the public policies of the agency's formation and the legislative intent of any funding from the Virgin Islands government to assist in the collection of waste. In closing, we thank the Commission for the hearing today, for giving an opportunity to make this argument. And we request the Commission that to respectively consider the following issues as they make their decision. 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 does not equal 11. That the sun rises from the east and not from the west. That one cannot look for a golden window in a house that's made the foundation of sand. One cannot look for a golden window in a house with a foundation of sand. That when you give a leopard's chicken, the next time is gonna come for your goats. And that you do, that the tiger does not show about its strength. That its devouring power is shown through the skeletons of antelopes. You know that a tiger was around when you see the skeletons. This commission cannot ignore its power and the possibility of devouring our waste management resources, and it should follow its mandate to protect us from creating more skeletons of unpaid vendors. Finally, I use these sayings because I have had a lot of West Caribbean sayings, and I think my favorite one is where injustice is used or justified when they talk about goat head is not a sheep head. I'm trying to use the ones that would be appropriate, that are not going to be putting us in jeopardy. Do not use that term. Please try to see that PSC must resume its fiduciary duties as a shepherd of the PSC, of the Virgin Islands agencies. As a public servant, Mr. Chair and co-counsels, we have a duty to call upon our legislature and the body of the legislature to change and rectify the law where it's not clear or where it's necessary to make changes. PSC and Waste Management has a duty to work together to provide this community with the sweeping cards, ATM cards to drop off their garbage. As public servants, we have a duty and a mandate not to leave a legacy of collapsed and collapsing public institutions and utility agencies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council. Attorney Strain.
I shall endeavor to be brief. As Attorney Kahugu noted, we alerted the legislature to this issue before the Waste Management Authority was created. Legislature has subsequently been alerted to this issue with every budget year that has occurred. They were alerted to this in the budgets of the Waste Management Authority, which from their creation until 2021 at least included funds to pay this assessment. They are alerted through the submissions by the Public Services Commission in its budget to every year that it was assessing the Waste Management Authority and the specific amount that it had been assessing. It is true that the commission has never sought an appropriation until the current year. The only reason we sought an appropriation was because Waste Management had failed to pay their assessments, as had WAPA. The commission has been and is historically, as are all state commissions, self-funding through assessments on the regulated entities. If anything, the legislature has acted with some degree of clarity by enacting Act 8471, which made the Waste Management Authority no longer subject to only fee setting by the commission, but placed it entirely within the regulatory jurisdiction. All of the bodies regulated by the commission are charged with paying their annual assessments. The only one that has failed multiple years to do so is the Waste Management Authority. The suggestion that the appropriations are donations to the Waste Management Authority is blatantly false. The appropriations are to pay the operating expenses. When operating expenses are paid, that is revenue to the entity. They have provided no authority for the assertion that paying operating expenses changes that from revenue. And the commission is required to do its assessments on operating revenues. There is no authority cited that those expenses, the revenue required to pay those expenses, magically became a grant or a donation. This has been a process that's been in place for, at this point, nearly 20 years. There has never been anything by the legislature to indicate that process was incorrect. There's never been anything from any court, and there's been no authority cited. I will note that on the chart up above, Waste Management includes what it considers its regulated operation revenue. One of the revenues it is authorized to collect is the wastewater user fee. The wastewater user fee, which is collected through the property taxes, alone should produce the amount that's shown there, and it's not shown on their chart. Their chart contains false information, and their argument fails to meet the standards required to change a 20-year process. The assessment should stand, and I'll rest.
Commissioner McGrath, any questions? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Attorney, let me ask you, what legal reference have you used to come up with your definition of gross operating revenue? What is the legal reference you're using for that definition?
Language comes directly from the statute.
It doesn't come from the statute. The statute doesn't have a definition of gross operating revenue.
It does. We can refer to it.
Can you give me the
The
exact
statute is
citation?
quoted. The definition is there as used into this section. Gross operating revenue means the gross operating revenue of a public utility derived from interterritorial regulated operations.
What's the citation?
Title 30, VIC 25A, small a.
And what's your definition of gross? The word gross operating revenue. Isn't that a collection of all?
To you.
Isn't that a collection of all?
Could you ask that again, sir?
Yes, it says gross operating revenue. What is your definition of the word gross? Gross operating revenue.
I'd have to refer to the Black Law Dictionary, which is not in front of me, but I'll let the CFO and the interim executive director respond to that.
We're not deferring to anybody else, and we're not taking testimony. So counsel, either you're gonna answer the question or there's no answer.
Well, I would say the total, gross.
Doesn't that entail all operating revenues?
Correct.
So wouldn't it include the operating revenues appropriated by the legislature?
Operating revenue to pay bills? No.
The budget document clearly states that the funds appropriated to the Waste Management Authority are for operating expenses. So wouldn't gross operating expenses include those revenues?
Sir, if you're given money to go buy bread.
No. Give me some good definition. I don't want to hear about bread and GIS, please.
You ask the questions.
Let's talk to the matters that are before us.
Correct. As a legal counsel, my position is to provide examples as part of my legal argument.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Sams?
I have no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Raymond Williams?
Yeah, I'd like to first start off by thanking the Waste Management Legal Counsel for the lessons that she so put before us. But to the Legal Counsel, I appreciate what your position may be as a member of this organization and as a member of the commission for, I would say, cumulatively about 15 or so years. This is the first time that I've ever heard such an argument brought before the commission in defense of not having to pay what is prescribed by law in our judgment, the fees to operate this organization. I would also proffer that if your assertion, if your claim, if your points are to be held to be valid, I think the PSC would basically cease to exist based on from an operational, from a revenue perspective, because I guess the WAPA and all the other utilities that we regulate can bring the same argument. So I thank you for the lesson, but I must say that I absolutely do not agree with the basis from which you assert. Thank you.
Commissioner Hughes?
Thank you, Attorney, for the presentation. You are aware that this is the second petition for reconsideration that the Waste Management Authority has made. Last year's petition was denied by the commission on its merits. I understand your argument, and I appreciate that you've made it today. it would not appear to be a different argument than was made in the last petition for reconsideration. Is there something that I've missed? Is this essentially the same argument that we continue to have about the definition of operating revenue?
Same argument, sir.
How long have you been with the Waste Management Authority?
I started in 2022, but
So
I do have to give the credit of this discovery of the error to the former executive director.
I'd like to give him credit for something as well, because this discussion started largely out of his first assertion, which predates your involvement with the Waste Management Authority, that the Public Services Commission had no authority over the Waste Management Authority. So that predates you, and you can be forgiven for thinking otherwise, but that's where this discussion started some 3.5 years ago with Director Merritt. When we got past that point and established our regulatory authority over the Waste Management Authority, he then pivoted and essentially went to, well, if you're my boss, then you're just making mistakes with respect to how I have to share my revenue. So that's how this has kind of come full circle. I'm going to make a motion, Chair, if you will, if you're prepared for it.
I have some questions.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Senator, you filed a petition, like a motion for reconsideration. What are the legal standard or basis for court, or in this case, the commission, to grant your petition for reconsideration?
The one before you or the one that was
This
before the
one,
court?
what are the factors that we need to consider for a motion to reconsider?
I think it's pure and simple, the formula and the intent.
Council, I'm gonna cut you. That's not, it's not a formula. The form basis that the court uses as to whether or not a petitioner has met the standard for reconsideration. My next question was gonna be, which one of those four bases are you arguing?
So I didn't understand your question. The four bases, I don't really have it in front of my head. I have to refer back to that if I have any. I guess I have to look at the statute.
But it has been new intervening law?
There's no new intervening law, sir.
But are there new facts?
No new facts. But this will be
Okay,
new facts.
Let's just bear with me. So then what is your basis for the petition for reconsideration? That's the first question we need to answer, is whether or not you filed a legitimate basis for us to reconsider.
I would consider this to be new facts that came into revelation to waste management.
And I will respectfully disagree. There are no new facts here based on the comments or the answer you just gave to Vice Chairman Bruce's question. And the courts have clearly said that a motion to reconsider is not an opportunity for you to re-argue prior argument. So if there's nothing new here, there's no basis for us to reconsider the commission's order. Would you agree?
I don't agree. I think this denial would take me to court, which I was already, but waste management missed with the deadline. That's why I'm here, because if you deny it, I'm gonna head to court.
And that's fine, and that's your right.
Right.
But you've also argued that the statute is clear, correct?
Yes.
If the statute is so clear, why are we having this disagreement?
Because of the way PSC chooses to read the statute for 20 years.
And you would agree with me that it is the PSC's authority to interpret its statute.
Correct.
Right.
Although
but you disagree with the way we've interpreted the statute.
Completely disagree with the interpretation, sir.
And therefore, since you disagree, then the only place for you to go to get this resolved is in the court, correct?
Correct.
All right.
However, you could make it easier for yourselves and give us time to do the people's duties.
I understand your position, but you also argue, and I think somebody else touched on this, that when the legislature gave the waste management the appropriation, it was not intended to pay the annual assessment for the PSC.
Correct.
For the armament. When the legislature gives you an appropriation, do you pay your WAPA utility bills out of that?
No, really, we don't have the money, sorry, enough.
No. I didn't understand your response.
I say we don't have enough appropriation to pay all our vendors and our bills.
Okay, but would a WAPA bill be considered part of your bills that you should pay?
To the vendors, yes, correct.
Yes. So what is the difference between the WAPA bill that you should pay and the PSC assessment that you're claiming you should not pay?
Okay, I'll make it this very, very clear. Maybe you'll be able to reach a consensus. You regulate, you get paid. You don't regulate, you don't get paid. You didn't regulate anything for us. We didn't make any income. Whatever we have is what you're gonna pay. Okay. So to take 40 million coming from the legislature and decide as part of what you helped us make would be distorted.
Well, we regulate the waste management authority.
Yes, the fees that come from wastewater, solid waste is what you should add up. And Attorney Boyd is correct. There is some money missing because we have not received everything from our wastewater free from Lieutenant Governor's office. It goes to a special fund. But whatever they put in there is what we get. It doesn't come directly to us, which I think it should, but that's another argument. But we don't have that money right now. And so whatever we make is what you're gonna get.
So when you collect the wastewater so free, you're gonna give us more money?
You're gonna use that to calculate your fees, but you cannot take what is coming from the legislature and the governor to come around and take it from us. It's just like taking your brother's or younger brother's lunch money. You are a sister agency. You're not WAPA.
And to the extent that this matter has been pending, at least for the last 2 years that you've been with the agency, has Waste Management sought any clarification from the legislature?
Yeah. In fact, there's a bill pending where the legislature does not even understand what PSC has been doing for 20 years. Okay, they're in shock.
There's a bill pending, but
yes,
the legislature has not acted to amend any of the statute.
They will.
Hold on. You're not answering my question. So as we sit here today, the legislature hasn't taken any action to amend any of the statute that governs this issue. Am I correct?
No, the statute remains the same, Title 30.
No. All right, I'll listen further. Any other commissioner? You have a motion?
I have a motion, Chair. I move that the petition for reconsideration be denied for lack of lack of basis and on its merits. So moved.
Second.
There's a motion, it's been seconded to deny the petition for reconsideration. Is there any discussion? You haven't heard none. Roll call.
Roll call. Clement McGrath.
Yes.
Yes.
Laura Nichols Sams.
Laura Nichols Sams, yes.
Raymond Williams.
Yes.
David Hughes.
Yes.
Pedro Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have 5 voting yes. The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, councilors, for your presentation. The next move to waste management matters, sewage issues. Who speaks to that?
So we have no further business. May I be?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith is in St. Croix's office. Director Mike's will just check.
Hi, good day, everyone. Waste Management Authority. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
And if Keith Smith could come to the front too, he's over our wastewater division.
Hold on. Who is that?
Keith Smith. Keith Smith.
Okay. We're gonna swear the witnesses. Who's gonna be testifying? Both of you?
I will be testifying and Mr. Smith will help answer questions because he's over the division.
I will swear him at the same time. Raise your right hand to be sworn.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony and the evidence you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please state your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Okay, Darrell Griffith, CFO and Interim Executive Director, DARYL, last name Griffith, GRIFFITH,
Keith Smith, Territorial Manager of Wastewater Operations. KEITH SMITH Smith.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, Mr. Griffith, you may proceed.
Thank you, sir. The Waste Management Authority is crucial in providing wastewater services to approximately 60% of the Virgin Islands, 85,000 to 115,000 residents, including collection, pumping, treatment, and disposal of wastewater. More than 4.5 million gallons of wastewater daily rushes through those pipes, heading toward the wastewater treatment plants on St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. The collection system consists of both gravity and pressure pipes of various sizes, in addition to several pump stations, is a testament to the importance of our work. The wastewater infrastructure in the territory is aged and failing, presenting significant challenges for the authority. The system is becoming increasingly expensive and difficult to operate and maintain daily. Recently, problems have multiplied due to the passing of Tropical Storm Ernesto. The problem is caused by the stormwater drainage system being connected to the wastewater system. The system is bombarded with excessive grease, rags, and other small debris on a typical day. For example, chopper sewage pumps are designed to manage some level of trash and rags, anything 3 inches or less, but no pump in the world is designed to handle rock, especially the 7 to 8 inch or more stones we received after severe flooding. The Waste Management lost 6 pump stations just days after the storm, 3 of which are critical stations. On St. Croix, 2 were lost just hours apart on the same day. The authority is struggling with those stations and cleaning rock and debris from the collection gravity system. In 2024, the authority launched the Wastewater Optimization Program. The program is a practical roadmap for achieving reliability, sustainability, and optimization of wastewater infrastructure. Fortunately for the territory, when a FEMA assessment was conducted of the territory's sewage system after the 2017 hurricanes, it was concluded that repairs could not be done to stabilize the sewage system. FEMA concluded that the entire system had to be prudently replaced. Starting with St. Croix on October 25th, 2024, FEMA obligated PW 1404 with a net cost of $1 billion. FEMA will pay 98% of this cost, which is $989 million, and the territory is responsible for the remaining 2%, which is $20.2 million. The authority has aggressively begun procuring the necessary equipment and services in the 4 months since these funds were obligated. Waste Management contracted with Engineering Design Technologies, known as EDT, to provide professional architectural and engineering design for the LBJ sewer shed, the pump station responsible for most of the sewer leaks in Christiansted. This sewer shed is being redesigned and will be moved from its current location. The authority has also purchased a bypass pump, which should arrive in the territory in mid-March next month to assist with the LBJ system. We are also currently advertising the procurement for the purchase of all sewage pumps on St. Croix. This is broken down into 13 small pump stations and larger ones. You'll see it on the list below. The large pump station being advertised in addition to LBJ's Fig Tree pump station. All of these bids are due to the authority by the end of this month, February. The pump arrival time after an order has been placed and payment made will take approximately 6 months because these pumps must be built. When they arrive, the Waste Management team will install the pumps at the pump stations. The authority also has an RFP out through the Office of Disaster Recovery, ODR, called Bundle 4, in collaboration with WAPA, Public Works, and the Office of Disaster Recovery. This RFP is for the design and build services for the underground pipes that cover North Central St. Croix. The Waste Management, in partnership with ODR, is issuing this request for proposals from submitters capable of entering into an architectural and engineering and construction agreement to provide progressive design build services for the assessment, architectural and engineering designs and construction of the Mombiju, Barren Spot, Humbug 1 and 2, and Fig Tree. The Waste Management in partnership with ODR and the successful submitter shall enter into a mutually binding full service agreement. The sanitary sewer collection systems included in this RFP encompass the north central portion of the island to the south central area of the island. It comprises over 171,000 linear feet of sewer lines, ranging from 4 to 24 inches in diameter, approximately 710 manholes, 1,800 surface laterals, and 25,000 linear feet of sewer force main. The authority is working on Bundle 6 with ODR to encompass the rest of St. Croix. On the boardwalk in St. Croix, Waste Management installed a 10-inch PVC pipe from a manhole located at a restaurant site to a pipe installed under the Christianstead boardwalk. This leaking pipe created a hazard to the environment and public health. The authority installed a plug in the inlet to prevent sewage wastewater from flowing into the sea. The authority is currently working to devise a permanent solution to this problem, which is being done by our engineers as we speak. Next, we will discuss St. Thomas. On January 17th of this year, 2025, FEMA obligated PW 100216 with a net cost of $2.1 billion. And this was done 3 weeks ago. FEMA will pay 98% of this cost, which is $2.1 billion, $2.14 billion. And the territory is responsible for the remaining 2%, which is $43.7 million. The authority has already started creating the scope of work for the RFP to purchase the pumps for the St. Thomas pump stations and the scope for the repair and rebuild of the pump stations as well. Below is a list of the St. Thomas pump stations that you can take a look at. Furthermore, concerning the current emergency with the Can Crank pump station, the authority purchased 3 new pumps and fittings, and delivery and installation is expected in early March 2025, which is next month. The authority is also working with ODR on Bundle 5 for St. Thomas to advertise the RFP for the underground work. St. John has also been approved for FEMA wastewater funds. FEMA obligated PW 100219 and on January 17, 2025, 3 weeks ago, for a net cost of $83 million, with a federal share of 98%, which is $81 million that FEMA will pay, and the territory is responsible for the remaining 2%, which is $1.6 million. The pump stations, pump wastewater treatment plants, and the underground piping will also be worked on in St. John. Below is the list of the pump stations for the PSC to review. In the years to come, the territory's sewer infrastructure should finally see the promise of real change. Still, we should be aware that this type of infrastructure change is complex and involved because it requires enormous amounts of planning, engineering, and construction, and it has many moving parts. It takes time to build better. And as we can see, the system is not waiting. The question is, how will we maintain the newly built system when we get all this done? The answer is 100% allocation of the sewer funds to the Waste Management Authority. The authority is currently capped at $1 million for these funds, which the board was speaking about earlier, when over $2 million was generated last year. And with the additional properties added to the system that was done this year by the Waste Management Authority, the amount collected will exceed $4 million. The authority needs these funds to maintain the sewer system now and in the future. Currently, the Senate has allocated those funds to other agencies. This concludes my testimony. My team and I remain available to address any questions that the PSC may have. Thank you so much for the time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Griffith. Commissioner McGrath, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions, but I do want to congratulate Mr. Griffith. It's a mammoth job you have ahead of you, and a lot of new projects coming online. So I wish you luck. We need it desperately. So good luck with your work.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Sams?
Hi, this is Commissioner Laura Nichols Sands. I have no comments, and I also want to thank you for your testimony, Director Griffith.
Thank you.
Mr. Raymond Williams?
Yeah, good afternoon, Director. Did I hear a timeline for the project and the phases of the project? Where are you planning to start, or are you still in the planning phases?
We've started the projects on St. Croix because it was obligated in October of 2024, which was a few months ago. So for St. Croix, we've already we currently have advertising the pumps for all of the pumps needed for the island of St. Croix. We currently have a company called EDT engaged in LBJ to move LBJ and to rebuild it. And we currently have an advertisement now with the Office of Disaster Recovery for Bundle 4 to do all of the underground work for the eastern side of St. Croix. And we are currently working on Bundle 6 with ODR right now too, as well, to put together the scope of work for the remaining portion of St. Croix. And in St. Thomas, we were obligated just 3 weeks ago in January. So we're doing this exact same process. So we should have that completed before the end of February to put out the advertisement for the pump stations for St. Thomas as well. And we've already purchased some pumps for St. Thomas outside of this prudent replacement money for Cancrine, which was in desperate need of repair. Those have been ordered and shipped, and they should be arriving. We hope by the end of February, but we're estimating by mid-March at the latest.
I remember seeing recently a project. I'm thinking it comes. I don't know if it starts at LBJ or where it originates, but it's what I can describe as what looked like a collapsible type of polyurethane pipe thing that ran on Centerline Road down through Humbug and Catherine's Rest. I want to believe headed back towards Provenza side. What project is that, and is that similar to what we can expect in terms of the new system?
I'm gonna tag over to Keith Smith to see if he's familiar with that project that you're discussing, because the one we're currently doing now, the only other one would be there's the Christian Step project that's being wrapped up now. But this new PSC funding will encompass all of that. Mr. Smith, are you familiar to the project that Mr. Williams is discussing?
Yes, I think that's the one engineering is working on, that Alex is working on. That's the Cross Lagoon project I think he's referring to.
I didn't hear you.
I believe that's a Cross Lagoon project you're referring to.
Probably, yeah, but so my interest is in what the technology that's being used, the type of continuous roll of material. What can you explain that more so that everyone can have a better understanding of what that?
Yeah, that technology is solar line sleeving. What happened is usually, because most of the pipe that we have in the ground, when we have old pipe in the ground, we have cast iron in the ground and stuff like that. So that technology is a PVC liner that you actually pull it into the solar line and expand it, and it causes a PVC coating, into the pipe, and that's what that project was about. It's called sleeving. It's cheaper than digging up the entire road and replacing the entire pipe.
So, but does it at some point replace the original cast iron pipes? Or?
One of the things that drawback is to make the pipe a little smaller than make the pipe smaller because of because of course it costs like a 1-inch PVC thickness inside of the pipe. So it's like you have a new pipe in the ground. But doing putting replacement, many areas will be taking that pipe completely out of the ground. That's the plan for putting replacement. Actually replacing all the cast iron and the clay pipe and stuff like that. We'll be replacing all that stuff and putting in PVC pipe.
Okay, and then I noticed that a lot of the connected manholes, the work has been done, but I continue to see sewage still leaking and some what I suspect is patching around the manholes that clearly aren't working either. So who manages, who oversees, who looks at that work?
That's Waste Management Authority, and that's the whole point of prudent replacement, is because what we've been doing is patchwork, and that's what FEMA came in and saw, that you cannot patchwork this system. The system has to be 100% replaced. So that's why this prudent replacement was approved, because when FEMA went in, they saw what Waste Management knew, is that the system is over half a century old, and it simply cannot be stuck back together. It has to be replaced. So that you're going to continue seeing leaks sprout up until we complete prudent replacement. And the first step has already begun, thankfully for St. Croix, where before the year end, we'll see a large number of the pumps replaced. So you'll then the second part that's going to be scary after replace those pumps is that you're going to have old pipes getting and Mr. Smith has assured me that he'll be able to regulate the speed that the new pumps will generate until we replace them. But my fingers are crossed for all of us to make sure that we can regulate the speed enough on new pumps to make sure that we don't see a increase in leaks. But prudent replacement is the only way to stop these leaks that we currently have across the territory.
And I want to say this. When you're talking about a soil collection system, you have basically three types of system. You have a closed system where you have it's just soil, no INI, what we call infiltration from stormwater. You have a combined system which is actually designed not only for collection and treatment for soil water. And then you have what you call an open system, which we have right now. We explain an open system, which your system is not designed for stormwater, the trash and the rocks and garbage that we receive right now. So what happened with us is that we are receiving 7-inch, 8-inch stones into our pumps and destroying our pumps. And unfortunately, I've only been with the utility for a year and 4 months. But what Inesta did is actually highlight just how vulnerable we are when it comes to stormwater and severe storms, right? So the plan is to put mechanisms in place to, like what we call automatic bar screens to protect our pump stations. We need to protect them. The pumps are very expensive. Just the 3 pumps for LBJ are going to cost me close to $800,000 just to buy 3 pumps for LBJ. The pumps for Concrete is around $400,000 for 3 pumps for Concrete. And the thing about it is we can't continue to, every time we have a storm, replace pumps. So the new designs will have new technology, modern technology, automatic screening that will actually pull that stuff out because we're not gonna be able to change the entire system overnight. So we have to put mechanisms in place right now to protect our system in case we have another severe storm.
Okay, thank you. And so relative to, in terms of projects, coming, if you're in Christiansted, what is known as Goat Hill, on the, what is this, the southern side of the hillside in Christiansted, coming all the way down through town, heading back towards the ocean by Holgadansk. What is the plan for that area? Because I think everyone it's an extremely vexing situation, you know, on the road, the passage of that road being next to a hotel and those businesses. What is the plan specifically for that area?
For that area, the plan is remember I mentioned LBJ, that we're currently working with EDT to move the LBJ pump station. So that LBJ pump station is what causes the majority of those leaks in Christiansted. So I was just on the phone with the housing authority today, and we're going to go to their board to get permission to use their property that they're no longer going to be using. And we're going to move LBJ over there. And we've already purchased another bypass pump that'll come to address that situation as we do that, the big move. but we've already purchased another bypass pump to install an LBJ to help remedy that situation. So that's currently being worked on right now for the LBJ Christians, for the Christiansted area, actively.
And so is there, have you done any, had any discussions with Public Works relative to once you have the bypass pump in place and the possible relocation to repair or replace those roads? Heading from the seaplane east and coming from, I think, from the north to south, down towards the last area.
The great thing about prudent replacement is all of the funds for the road replacement that would have been assigned to waste management or to WAPA, most of the funds are going to be combined and given to Public Works so that they can do the repaving of all the areas that we're going to do work on.
And that's after you install a bypass pump and also relocate the pump station.
That's after we do the underground work.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Thank you, Director Griffith, for the presentation. I would encourage both you and our staff to have this posted as quickly as possible on our respective websites. It's a very nice update that I think is easily understood and it would be useful for people. Director, what is the name of this task force that has been put together for to manage the design and engineering of this project, the joint task force?
I don't know if that task force actually has a name. I just refer to basically the Office of Disaster Recovery and by their bundle numbers. Unfortunately, I've been doing it with them for a while, so I have the bundle numbers memorized, but I guess that's not a prudent way to do that. I think I'll go back to them with that suggestion that we name this task force then.
And I'm going to refer to it as the ODR Task Force for Prudent Replacement. I see Director Knight here in the audience. I'm just going to ask, did you also receive, I guess, a prudent replacement grant for the water system?
Yes, both St. Croix and St. Thomas.
Okay, so we've got some large projects queued up that involve both of the agencies. Is there it's not going to be called an incident commander, but who leads the ODR Task Force for Prudent Replacement? Is there a leader, or how does it work?
Prudent replacement is being handled through the Super Project Management Office. I assume that's what you're alluding to. They have a private consultant. There's several staff engineers that are overseeing a private consultant that is managing the Super Project Management Office.
Great. So as I previously mentioned, I think it would be an efficient way of the Public Services Commission to obtain updates that we engage a consultant to have full observation or observer status to this task force. I'm going to make a motion to that effect shortly. Do either one of you have any objection to placing an observer for the PSC in those proceedings?
That's really a conversation with the Office of Disaster Recovery. So I'd encourage.
I'm going to ask you guys first, and then we'll ask ODR. Do you care? Would you?
Is that on your dime or my dime?
Let's just leave that question aside for a moment.
Does that make a difference?
It does make a difference. I already have my own consultants that I'm paying to participate in this process.
Okay, well, we don't. So I'll just take that as a maybe, a definite maybe from you, Director Knight. How about you, Director Griffith? Any objection to placing a PSC person in the room for at least the design and engineering phases?
I have no objection, but I have no dimes. So, but no objection at all.
Okay, great. Well, I'll come back to that at the appropriate time. How does the money flow from a FEMA project, prudent replacement project? Do we have to fund the project up front, or is it just a FEMA paid directly against milestones? I'll ask Director Griffith since it's his docket here.
It's how it's done is that when the invoices are received, we send it through Vitima, which then Ernst & Young and the ODR team reviews. And once that is approved, that's sent to FEMA for payment. And then those funds are deposited into waste management or any other entity's accounts. And then we pay the vendor.
Okay, so you don't have to come up with $4 billion of cash flow here over the next 4 or 5 years.
It would be impossible.
That was kind of where I was going with that. Thank you. Good. So thank you, Chair. I have no other questions. But I will have a motion at the conclusion of this agenda item.
But following up on that question, based on my calculation and your report, the territory is required to come up with $66 million, more or less, correct? For these
yes, sir.
projects. Where is that money coming from? Have we identified the source of our $66 million contribution?
Currently, the source of the contributions are CDBG DR and CDBG MID from that's being conducted by the Housing Finance Authority.
But do you have a commitment to an obligation of those funds, or is this a wish list going forward?
It's the agency Housing Finance has obligated a little bit over $100 million. I think I don't know the exact amount, so I shouldn't guess. But I know it's over $100 million to matching funds for FEMA grants. So as we use the money, we immediately send the request. As we receive invoices, I should say, we immediately send the request to Housing Finance Authority for them to pay.
I'm not sure I understand that response. Am I to understand that you're hoping to get the money from community block grant?
That's the first point of for the money, because that's where a significant portion of those funds are allocated for.
But you don't have a commitment from them at this point.
No, you only get a firm commitment when you actually receive the invoice, and then you send the funds to them. So what you do is initially, once you start the project, you send the entire project to them and say, this is the cost of the project. This is a 2% of the project that we'll need from you. And then they give you an approval for that. And then as you get the invoices, you send those to them. What the ODR through the PSC has done is that it now allows for the FEMA funds to pay 100% of the invoice and leaves the last 2% to be paid. So you don't have to, you no longer have to split up each invoice into 98% and 2. You can simply take the one invoice and pay all of the 2%, and FEMA will pay all of the remaining 98%. Does that make sense, or that's not clear enough of an explanation? And I'll try it.
It's not clear to me, but let me ask another question. Do you have to show FEMA that you have your 2% before FEMA will expend or send you any money, or will they do that before you've even shown them your 2%?
You do not have to show FEMA the 2% for them to start paying the 98%. No, sir.
All right, let me switch subject. In the report you indicate on page 4, what is the current emergency with the Conquine pump station?
Can you repeat that again? So I couldn't hear, unfortunately.
On page 4 of your report, what is the current emergency with the Conquine pump station?
If you don't mind, I'll let Mr. Keith Smith, who is intimately involved with that, answer that question.
The Conquine pump station will last all 3 of the house pumps. So Conquine pump station, like Fitex station, it carries 3 pumps. We don't have any working pump in Conquine pump station at the moment. What we're using right now at Conquine is an emergency diesel backup pump on the outside of the station. So we have purchased and have ready made ship 3 brand new pumps for the Conquine pump station.
So what is the net effect if those pumps aren't working?
Pardon me?
What happens if those pumps are not working?
Conquine pump station is a critical pump station. I mean, we can't get sewage out of the city without Conquine pump station. Every other station in the city pumps to Conquine, and then Conquine pumps to the wastewater treatment plant behind the airport. which is Red Point. So actually, we have to have concurrent running all the time. And that's why right now we're running up overtime because we have the pump that we have using right now, that pump outside, diesel pump. We have guys stationed watching it 24/7 so they can continue pumping so we go to the sea.
Okay, and your position with the agency is what?
I'm a territorial manager of wastewater operations. And this will be a year and I think 5 months since I've started.
So you're an engineer?
Yes, but before I started, I did consulting work. I have 30 years experience in the water and wastewater. And I did consulting work for reliability, sustainability, and modernization of throughout the Caribbean and in Africa and different places. To try to train staff, design infrastructure, and modernize and optimize.
So what is the authority's staffing level to manage the sewage system, and how many engineers, and specifically, how many engineers do you have on staff?
Well, I'm in the operations. I'm on the operations end. We actually have an engineering division. I'm the head of the operations division. All right, so I'm the only engineer in the operations division.
How many engineers are in the engineering division?
I think we have 5 engineers, 4 or 5 engineers in the engineering division.
Is that territory-wide?
Territory-wide, yes. And we are advertising for more.
Is that correct, Mr. Griffith?
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm sorry?
That's correct.
But for my staffing, I think I'm at 67%.
And when these projects are up and running, what do you imagine your staffing level? What's the desired goal?
On the project side, because the ODR will be managing the put replacement, most of the put replacement, all the underground utilities, then we must add a couple more engineers to our staff to represent us at ODR.
So you only need 2 more engineers?
For the put replacement, we need engineers for the operations side.
So how much would you need?
2 more.
All right. I had a question about the report, again on page 2. You said this is a breakdown into 13 small pump station and large ones. You gave me a breakdown of the small pump station, but not the large ones. How many large ones do we have?
Okay,
so
we have 3 large pump stations at St. Croix. We have the Lagoon Street, which is in Frederickstead. We have Fig Tree, which is just behind Hess Oil, and we have LBJ. St. Croix is where we have small pump station and we have the large pump stations. The St. Thomas and St. John's are a little different because of quality. We have what we call the extra small pump station, medium pump station, and the large pump station, which is concrete.
But that's going to be my next question, because you didn't break that out for the St. Thomas pump station.
Yes.
You didn't even say whether they were large, small, medium size, or whatever.
Yes. We have four different sizes. The plan for put replacement is to standardize. The problem we have right now, which is make us a maintenance nightmare, we have 31 pump stations territory-wide. No 2 pump stations alike. So
how many do we have on St. Thomas?
We have, I think we have 11 on St. Thomas, I think 4 on St. John, and the rest of them is on St. Croix.
None on Water Island?
None on Water. We don't have a salt infrastructure, no salt infrastructure on Water Island.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your presentation. Mr. Hughes, you got a motion? Or?
I do. I'd like to offer this.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yes,
ask just
Mr.
one question? May I ask just one question of legal counsel?
Go ahead, Commissioner Grace.
Through the chair. Attorney Sprain, CDBG funds are considered federal funds. Can federal funds be used as matching funds for federal grants?
If you don't mind, Darryl Griffith, Interim Executive Director and CFO, I'd like to answer that. CDBG DR funds are the only, and CDBG MIT are the only federal funds that can be used as match. None of the others can, but they're specifically designed to be used as match.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right,
I have one other question for you, Mr. Griffith. You're serving as both the interim executive director and the CFO.
Yes, sir.
Are you getting paid for both of those positions?
Unfortunately not.
I'd like to offer the following motion. I move that staff be directed to contact the Office of Disaster Recovery and propose the participation of a Public Services Commission consultant in the ODR, so named ODR Task Force for Prudent Replacement. And that assuming a positive response to that query, move to engage or prepare candidates for engagement of that consultant. So
The motion is there a second?
Second.
The move by.
Question, discussion.
And seconded by Commissioner Stam. Yes, Commissioner Williams.
I know when Commissioner Hughes had a conversation earlier, in terms of payment, I think that we need to address the issue of potential payment and cost structure for what that person and a definition for what that person will be doing on behalf of the organization. So I don't know if that's something we want staff to do, or that's something we need to discuss now.
Raymond, if you'll permit me to address that. My sense is that we should first get through ODR and make sure that there are no strident objections to our inclusion in this process, and address those if they have it. I think that once we get that positive response, we might ask staff to come back and just simply propose a simple scope, duration, and cost for this, wherein we can then address the payment issue of how we might pay for it. I don't have any thoughts or ideas on answering those questions prior to actually talking to a consultant and seeing what that might cost. I do envision the engagement to be about 6 months at a minimum, just to get us through the design and engineering phases of each of the 3 territorial islands. But I'd like to first just send staff out to get the big answer, and then have them come back and propose to us what they think a prudent participation might look like.
No, but thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just including qualifications for potential candidates.
Sure.
All right, roll call.
Roll call. Commissioner McGrath,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols Sands,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymond Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams, Pedro.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have 5 voting yea. The motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you, Director Griffith and Mr. Smith for your presentation. You're excused.
Thank you, sir.
Now to item number 7 on the agenda, energy matters. Docket number 702. Representative of Walker.
I guess that's me.
Oh, that's you?
Yes. And I'll speak on behalf of Mr. Madden from Georgetown Consulting. Mr. Madden is presently in Australia, and it's currently about 3 a.m. his time. So,
you couldn't get up?
I think the very short summary is that the water LEAC is primarily connected to 2 major costs. One is the electric LEAC, how much the water system has to pay to the electric system for the power that's used in operating reverse osmosis plants, which do not operate on heat, but operate on pressure and electric pumps. And the electric LEAC rate is up for reconsideration next month. The other one is the consultants noted that Water sales were reported effectively down about 19% from the previous year. No comment was made in the submission as to why sales have dropped so precipitously. However, water production remained high. In fact, it increased slightly, which indicates that there's an increase in the line losses or losses generally through the water systems over the past year. So the recommendation of your consultants was that this matter should be carried forward to your next meeting, that the water rate should be held steady until the next meeting, and the rate for the water LEAC should be considered after the electric LEAC rate is set for the next quarter. And the commission has provided information regarding the sales and production of water. Wraps up the report.
Questions, Commissioner McGrath?
No questions.
Commissioner Raymond Williams?
No comment.
Commissioner Sams?
No questions.
Commissioner Hughes?
Rather than just speculate on Attorney Sprain's question about how sales are down and production is up, we have executives from WAPA here. You guys got a quick answer to that situation?
We have, have them sworn, please.
Thank everybody.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony and evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, could you guys you can speculate if you like. I am curious as to how sales are down and production is level, so.
Good morning, sorry, good afternoon, sir. I'm Lorraine Kelly, Chief Financial Officer at Water and Power Authority. I have some preliminary analysis, but what I would like to
Please talk louder.
Yeah, you
I'm
need to
sorry.
speak up.
I have some preliminary analysis, and what I'd like to suggest is by end of day tomorrow that I can submit this to you in written form.
You wanted speculation.
I'm just curious. I just speculate, please.
Yeah, Carl Knight, CEO. If the question is production up, sales down, then that leads to losses in the system, and losses probably originate from two different places. One, we've had a flushing program because of some of the discoloration issues that we have, so that would be reported as non-revenue water. And of course, we do have leaks in the system that we are trying to rehab. We have old ductile iron pipes that have far exceeded their useful life, and so we are trying to rehab those. We also are starting to suspect that some of our tankage may have be compromised in some way. So we're also evaluating that to make sure that our tankage is not also contributing to water loss.
I thought I read in the report that the water loss increased from like 30-some% to about 50%.
I can speak to that, Kelly. From the December information that we have year to date for 2020-24, we actually are going to give you this in the two islands, St. Croix separate from St. Thomas, and that includes St. John. For St. Croix, we actually have an increase in our line loss, went from 69% to 72.5%. And for the St. Thomas St. John, we had a reduction of from 32.5% to 27.8%. In terms of actual production numbers for last year in thousands, we actually have, again, I've got them by island, but we had this year, the St. Croix, we had 577,000, and last year we had 586,000, so that's a slight decrease in terms of production of water. And for St. Thomas, St. John, we had last year 445.9, so 446,000. And then this year it went down to 400. It's pretty much the same. It's 445.9 in both instances. So the water produced in St. Thomas, St. John was consistent year over year. but we had an improvement in line loss for St. Thomas, St. John, and a decline in line loss for St. Croix.
Did I hear you correctly that we have a 70% plus line?
So let me put an asterisk to that. I don't, that's an accounting report. It's not an industry report. It doesn't account, industry calculations of water loss speak to revenue water, non-revenue water. It speaks to, so for instance, if I'm out there flushing, or if the fire department is out there holding a fire, it's just shows
Part
up
of
to
that
the accountants
70%.
as we didn't bill for this. We do need to be a little bit more nuanced in our reporting on line loss as to what portions are system losses versus what portions are station service, approved usage, approved non-revenue waters versus what portions are diversion and theft. So there is some more nuance that we need to add to that. So while the percentage of water that's not billed for is large, there are some component parts such as the flushing and other component parts there that report doesn't speak to.
So for the mechanical or otherwise unexpected line losses, system theft, whatever, how are our contracts structured with 7Cs in terms of what we are obligated to take from them? And do we get any relief at all because our contracts are so large on a take or pay basis that we can afford to lose a whole bunch of water? Or do we pretty much pay for everything that they do on a per gallon basis?
So I'll answer the question. We pay for 7Cs to produce water. I'll add to that. 7Cs has approached us. I did approach the government, and I assume WAPA sometime last year, about providing the capital to replace some of the infrastructure that is failing, contributing to line losses. That got sidetracked for two reasons. One, the ongoing relationship with 7Cs, but most importantly, the fact that WAPA is the benefactor of prudent replacement from FEMA. So sometime over the last years, both the St. Croix project first and then subsequently St. Thomas were approved for prudent replacement. The first large prudent replacement project, I heard the conversation earlier with the Waste Management Authority. The first bundled prudent replacement project has already been put out for bid on the northeastern, I think we call it the northeastern quadrant of St. Croix. And so that is already out for bid. I think proposals would being evaluated now. I think Mr. Hodge can speak more to that. So that project has the promise of having a large swath of portions of the system that are leaking. So for instance, that project runs from Tide Village all the way to the Estate Lorraine on the island of St. Croix. That's miles of pipelines going to be replaced. I think that's going to put a real dent in the losses that we've been experiencing. There are two such projects planned for St. Croix, in addition to the smaller neighborhood rehabs that we're also doing as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to WAPA electric fuel procurement contract report.
Actually, if I may interrupt, I think our last meeting, we just continued the water layup rate to the next meeting. So it officially expires now. We should have a motion to continue it to your next meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second. Roll call.
Commissioner McGrath,
Yes.
Commissioner Sims,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymond Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Pedro Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have 5 voting yes, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Move on to the next item. Electric fuel procurement contract.
One of you two.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the next item?
He's
Okay.
We have We have begun the procurement process for, so there's two procurements. I think you're referring to the LPG procurement. We've begun the process. We secured a consultant, Caribbean Utility Services. They're drafting the request for proposals. We anticipate that draft to be completed this week. We anticipate, after a back and forth on that draft, having it advertised at the start of the month of March, thereabouts, with an expected contract award sometime in perhaps 60 days of that advertisement. In the meantime, we have conversations with our current fuel provider, Vitol, to extend on a month-to-month basis the existing arrangement to make sure not only do we have time to go through a proper procurement process, but to also make sure that if in fact we do select a vendor other than Vitol, that there is enough time to allow them to make the logistical adjustments that they would need to make in order to meet our satisfy our needs. So there is a procurement process that has begun. We're probably a couple months behind the schedule that we had hoped to be on, but the process is underway.
Questions, Commissioner McGrath?
No questions.
Commissioner Williams?
No questions.
Commissioner Sams?
No questions.
Commissioner Hughes?
Director Nutt, I'd like to see if you would submit to the commission, please, the scope of the, I don't care about the financials of it per se, but the scope of the engagement with your field consultant. I'm particularly interested if they're also providing to you market analysis services, defining participants in the market, other than just helping you write the RFP.
Yes, we can provide the scope. So part of the reasons it was just to put out a solicitation. We would have done that as we just recently did with the LFO contract. We did that in-house. But this, we have asked a consultant that can help us with some of the market analysis so we can evaluate pricing in that fashion, as well as to make sure we secure, attract as many players and make the process as competitive as possible.
And again, I'm not particularly interested in what you're paying the entity. I am particularly interested in what you're asking them to do. I'm assuming we should be able to figure out their qualifications just from a search of their name and organization.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
So now your testimony is that you should have the RFP completed by 11:59 of February 14th, same time as the poll attachment agreement.
The draft, my consultant is providing me with a draft RFP. I think I said we should have, we should complete our review and have it wrapped up by the end of the month.
Oh, I thought you said the week.
I should have a draft document by the end of the week. But I still need to go through it. As a consultant stab at it, we still need to look at it and make sure it suits our needs. But by the time we meet again, I should have it finished.
I thought the testimony was that I thought it said the week, and then you should advertise in March.
Yes, we should be advertising. We should be ready to advertise sometime in March. Yes, I should have. Maybe I shouldn't have spoken to the draft. We should have a completed RFP in March and begin advertisement. Yes.
And then you have another 2 months or so. So we should have a new agreement by June.
I think when I worked backwards on the timeline, I think we were saying June 1st, yes.
And when does your agreement with Vitol expire?
The agreement with Vitol actually expires at the end of this month. We have already begun conversations and we have rough terms for a month extension. We think we'll extend them into the summer just to make sure that we can complete the process. do so address.
We'll be looking for a month-to-month extension until June.
Yeah, we'll see the structure of the agreement that makes sense for Utah. We're in those conversations now.
All right, thank you.
So just a couple of follow-on questions. We've had some internal discussion about engaging our own fuel consultant just to educate the PSC on the state of the market and what might constitute an open RFP process. I don't particularly think that is necessary to the extent that we can live a little bit off of your consultant. So to the extent that you're willing to share his recommendations to you and his summary of the market and well, we're going to see the RFP anyway. Then I don't think it's necessary that the PSC necessarily take on and first find and then take on a separate consultant at an additional expense, which we would be paying. So I hope we can get great cooperation from you with respect to information sharing on what your consultant is telling you. The question also came up earlier today about the current LEAC and the current fuel contract and what's the PSC's role in contract approval. And the comment that I made to my fellow commissioners is that we've approved a current fuel rate, which is substantially less than that which you're paying. And that number is used in LEAC to calculate the approved LEAC rate. I'd just like to make the point that as you go through this process, you can, of course, obligate the authority, I guess, to any contract that you like, but that doesn't bind the PSC in the LEAC process to reimburse you for those amounts. And I would encourage you to, prior to executing a contract with another fuel vendor, this time bring that contract before the PSC and gain our approval of it. Your choice, but I'm saying that if you want those amounts considered in LEAC, you run the risk of signing the contract and we take a totally different view of its adequacy. So
what I'll commit to is transparency in the process. You've asked to see the data, you've asked to see the analysis. We can share the RFP and certainly we can share the evaluation report that leads to the selection. So I'll commit to transparency in the process.
I just wanted to make the point that the PSC has historically used a number which we've approved. We intend to do that going forward. We'd love the opportunity to approve that prior to your execution and not afterwards, because then both parties are not at risk for a differential. We're going to deal in the discussion here about deferred fuel largely, which is a discussion about the differential between what you're paying and what we approved. So I think there's a great example on how not to do this going forward. So thank you, Chair.
So is there a commitment that you're going to provide it?
I didn't even
You didn't ask for the commitment.
I know, I'm asking.
I'll say this, I understand.
I'll say what he wouldn't say.
I understand the wisdom of Commissioner Hughes's point. It doesn't make sense for us to contractually commit to pricing that ultimately the PSC has a vehement objection to. And it's my hope that as we go through the process, because I also, my first regulator is my board, and so as I have to get board approval of whatever contractual obligations I plan to enter into, and certainly as I build the case and the argument, I can share that with the Public Services Commission, and if there's a strong objection or questions that as to process, maybe that can give us pause, or maybe it might inform us in our contract negotiations with the selected vendor. So I do understand the point. I want to make sure that procedurally we come up with a process that is sustainable. I don't want to set a precedent that isn't sustainable. And so I'll put some thought into procedurally how we can manage this particular aspect of our operation, which is the fuel procurement that ultimately gets priced into the rates. And I'll figure out, we'll probably huddle as a team and figure out procedurally what that should look like and could look like.
Oh, so I'm not gonna get a commitment. All right, we'll move on. Phase 2 Wadzilla.
Phase 2 Wadzilla. Sorry? Yes. We did provide a report this morning on running hours. I would have Mr. Lavinier join us just to add any color that you may want. So we provided a report on running hours. You should have that. We have what's 4, 5, 6, and 7 have been online for the latter part of December and most of January. We have in fact encountered some warranty issues that as of this morning, those 3 of the 4 units are not online. I think a large portion of those warranty issues, as I understand it, Watsilas 1, 2, 3, 1 through 3, or 1, 2, 3, whichever one, those worked primarily on a gaseous fuel, propane in its gaseous form, whereas Watsilas 4 through 7 work with propane in its liquid form. It seems like we have some mechanical issues that we're working through with Watsila regarding the deployment of the liquid propane on Watsilas 4, 5, 6, and 7. So their availability in the last couple of weeks has not been what we had hoped for, and we are expecting a Watsila team to help troubleshoot some of the issues that we're having as part of the warranty agreement with Watsila. So, but we have provided the megawatt-hour production of those units for the last several months, going back to October of last year.
We still have a Watsila team of members stationed in the territory?
Yes, we have an ongoing, we have a team that is here. It's a skeleton crew. As I understand it, that was assistant commissioning. And we are bringing in, they are bringing in a more technical team to augment that staff and provide some more troubleshooting insight into what the issues might be that's affecting the availability of those units. I have with us our new Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Manuel Lavinier, and he can certainly speak to some of those technical questions.
You know the drill, we're gonna ask you to raise your right hand to be sworn.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony and the evidence that you will be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
So you state and spell your name, please.
Lemuel Lavinier, L-E-M-U-E-L, last name Lavinier, L-A-V-I-N-I-E-R.
May proceed.
So we do have.
You're gonna have to speak up because I know they
Yes,
can't hear
no
you.
There is a field service technical expert on island. They've been assessing the issues with what it was 5, 6, and 7. The engines suffered some plug blowout. They've inspected one of the engines. There was some coolant water in the unit. There was also an indication of the head gasket that was damaged. So each of the engines 5, 6, and 7, based on the observation, the engines have to be dismantled. So for that reason, we don't have all of the parts, the parts list for the review of all the engines. So that information is taking some time from them.
Questions, Commissioner McGrath?
Yes, so did you determine whether the units were warranted or not, were under warranty?
The units are currently under warranty. They're being prepared under warranty.
You said probably.
No, I said they are. They are under warranty.
Oh, they are under warranty, okay.
Yes.
And we do have warranty claims with Watsila.
Okay, I have no further question.
Commissioner Raymond Williams?
No question.
Yeah, so what are the warranty issues? You said that's covered by the warranty. What are the issues that you're talking about?
We have issues with the dual fuel injector. We've experienced early failure of the injector, so Mozilla is working on resolving that issue. That is one of the bigger issues that we have.
So what you just mentioned, those are not included in the warranty?
Yeah, those are included.
They are
in the warranty.
included.
Yeah, that's just an example.
So when you say warranty issues, I guess what I'm thinking is there something that was not included in the warranty that you're having an issue with?
No.
Okay.
We're saying these are issues that are subject to the warranty with Wärtsilä. So these are repairs that Wärtsilä acknowledges falls within the warranty responsibility.
So are they presently repairing or fixing these items? And if so, what's the turnaround time for them to be fixed so that we can use these units on a regular basis?
So we don't have a full ETA. So as I said, there's a team that's traveling next week. There are some issues. There's a team here that's working on some of the minor issues, but there seems to be a more, I want to say it's systemic, but there seems to be something that they really need to have a better grasp of. And so there's a technical team that's traveling. Once they're on the ground, they'll be able to give us an ETA. So the repair is one thing, but to make sure it's not a reoccurring failure, we want to make sure that we don't have the same challenges once we get outside of the warranty period. So rather than just a repair, we want to get the analysis and have an understanding of what might be the cause.
So when's this team supposed to be here? Like, when are they going to start work? Do we know?
My understanding from the project engineers, sometime next week, they should be on the ground. I can get you a specific.
Will you keep us informed of this process?
Certainly will do. By the time we meet again, we should have for an update on what we found.
Okay.
If it's not yet repaired, hopefully it's repaired, and what the prognosis is moving forward. Of course, keep the staff informed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, our both grid scale storage installations, it was a 9 megawatt hour over on St. Thomas, and the Honeywell stuff on St. Croix. Are those both fully commissioned and functioning at this point, integrated?
The Honeywell batteries on the Petronella solar farm, those are commissioned, those are working, those are integrated. The Wärtsilä batteries, we did have some issues with at least one of the canisters. I think we were at 75%. That's also something we're working through in the warranty period at Wärtsilä. So while we have use of the batteries, it's not currently at full capacity. So,
I mean, how would you characterize your understanding of how you're going to use grid scale storage? I know there was a plan. Obviously, we wouldn't have spent, the federal government wouldn't have spent the money. Is it evolving, particularly with respect to Honeywell, how we're dispatching that as both a load and a generator?
So I'll begin a response, and then Mr. Lavinier can probably give you a more technical response as to how we forecast it moving forward. But there are two different systems. The approach in the Crum Bay, Randolph Harley plant is to back up generation. And so we have 9 megawatts of standby power that backs up the 9 megawatt Wärtsilä engine.
Cold starts, all that good stuff.
Right. There are points during the evening when we can discharge on battery power if it makes sense to, rather than having to start another unit. And then the next day we start to recharge. And so that's how that has been discharged. It has prevented some of the nuisance outages as we've lost generation, or has helped us meet peak at times. That's how that battery is used. The one in Petronella was primarily designed to smooth out fluctuations. I know there was a lot of ambiguity as to what role the battery would play in the system. We do have the ability to dispatch that after the sun goes down, we continue to dispatch from the battery to get a little bit more production from the farm before the end of the day. But primarily it plays a role during the course of the day of smoothing out fluctuations of cloud cover and haze and anything else that might reduce the full production potential of that farm.
Seeing the batteries sitting at Ogensburg, they're not dispatched yet.
They're not dispatched as yet.
Okay. And you have 9 megawatts in St. Thomas under the internal installation, just right?
That's correct. 9 megawatts, 18 megawatt hours.
Okay, so it can discharge at the rate of 9 megawatts per hour for 2 hours. So it can replace the loss of your largest Fort Silla.
Yes, for at least 2 hours. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I wasn't clear. Are you saying that Wacilla's 4 to 7, are they functioning at all, or what percentage are they functioning?
4 is online right now. Where 5, 6, and 7 are offline for repairs.
Oh.
So of the 4, 1 of them is online, but 3 of those are deemed unavailable right now in need of repairs.
So as a result of that, are we anticipating blackouts?
We never anticipate blackouts.
We should.
So I have so we do have the first 3 Watsillas. We did have some unavailability on Watsilla 1, but we do have Watsillas 2 and 3 dispatch. We have units 15 dispatch. Those are all on LPG. And then we are supplementing, unfortunately, we have had to supplement production at times with unit 23. So unit 23 is online right now as we speak. Unit 23, as you know, is notoriously unreliable. I'm told I'm not supposed to speak ill of unit 23. But unit 23 is online.
And so we anticipate that we'll be able to keep on the current situation until the technical team arrives sometime next week and do what they're supposed to do to get us back to that units 5 to 7 will be back online.
My God is good. He's going to hold everything intact until we can get the technical team in here and resolve those issues.
Forget about that this morning, huh?
What do you hold in reserve? 27 on diesel?
No, 27 is offline. So we're right now. So when we started the year, we actually had standby capacity. Right now, we don't have standby capacity. We're running all the units that are available.
Okay. What is your warranty period? How many months a year?
So it goes based on the hours, running hours, and you're saying 8,000. That sounds like a lot. Let me get back to you. Let me get back to you what the contractual language says.
Yeah, I'd like to know how much time we have left on that warranty.
Yeah, let me consult the contract so I can tell you what it actually is.
What's the plan for the long-term operation of the Wartsilla units? Have we contracted with Wartsilla, or are we planning to do that ourselves?
We are in conversations with Wartsilla as we speak. When I came on board, the initial mindset was to engage him with an O&M contract as we had done for the first 3 units. There's 2 wrinkles to that conversation. One, we're looking at the marriage of the original O&M contract with the current engagement. And 2, with the onboarding of Mr. Lavinier on January 7th, he has suggested that we look at a more traditional approach to the O&M as other Caribbean countries are using with Wartsilla, which is less on-site presence, more engagement on routine maintenance intervals, and building an on-site presence that's in-house as opposed to relying on them to be on-site. So we are exploring what makes sense from a cost perspective with Wartsilla that doesn't compromise the maintenance needed on those units.
What is the current engineering staffing levels at WAPA?
A little bit more than waste management. We have We have well over a dozen engineers between generation. On the electrical side, it's probably at least 10 engineers. We have some additional engineers on the water side as well. So it's probably a little over a dozen engineers. And then I have, of course, engineers throughout the management team, Slab there, Harrigan in the power plant. We have engineers sprinkled throughout the management team as well. For our staff engineers, probably about a dozen.
How much should you have?
Me and Mr. Lavinier had that conversation just this morning about how we structure the company. We're always recruiting. We have an active recruitment program through our scholarships and our summer internships. One of the ongoing conversations. So yes, when we get to projects such as prudent replacement, that's beyond some of our staff capacity. So we're outsourcing a lot of A&E work for planning, design, in some cases, project management, and for routine operations, maintenance, systems planning. We want to make sure we maintain adequate capacity in-house. I'm always in need of engineers. We're looking at what we can get away with. I would probably say I'd be comfortable if I had about 5 brand spanking new engineers, hopefully with some experience. I could take on some novice, but maybe 2 or 3 that are experienced engineers would probably get us on solid footing.
Territory-wide?
Territory-wide, yes. And most of our engineers work territory-wide. They do focus on their districts, but WAPA is a territorial entity, and we do move back and forth depending on who it is.
Thank you.
Since we're talking about generation effectively, that's a great view of St. Thomas. What if anything is going on in St. Croix? We're starting to see more frequent and more serious outages. It's been my experience since I've gotten back on island. That suggests to me that the older, larger units are becoming more problematic.
Yeah, I'll pull some data. I don't know if I would characterize it as such. We know that we have a lot of feeder outages, and so for those folks that reside on feeder 10B, their experience, I know, their experience may not be indicative of the rest of the island, and a lot of the issues we've been having on feeder 10B are ultimately vegetation management. So there is a concerted effort to address vegetation management. We hosted on St. Thomas just last week some 500 tree trimming entities that were here for their annual conference. I did make some overtures to several of which have expressed an interest in providing contractual vegetation management services. So we are targeting an arrangement to hopefully begin on June 1st. We've also secured federal funding to build and train a in-house tree trimming crews, something that WAPA used to have. Apparently we've moved away from in recent years, so we are looking to restore in-house tree trimming capacity. We have also identified a training entity that should provide training to our in-house tree trimmers. So we're working on the vegetation management issues. You're absolutely right. Unit 17 and units 20 are way past due for major overhauls. Unit 20 was down this past weekend. We did have a brief island-wide outage on Saturday on the island of St. Croix. Had Unit 20 been available, we would not have experienced that outage, but we did have a lot of debris in the exhaust stack that required almost a week and a half worth of work to remove. And a lot of that has to do with deferred maintenance on Unit 20. Unit 19 is in fairly good shape, but it's a diesel burning unit. Our 2 propane or dual fuel units, 17 and 20, are due for major overhauls. We haven't had the luxury of being able to take them down. We are beginning the prudent replacement process. One step in that process is the removal of the old Unit 16, clearing that site, which would potentially allow us to acquire a temporary gen set as part of the replacement, ultimately, of the generating units. If we can make that happen as a first step in the prudent replacement, it will actually bolster and augment our generation capacity on St. Croix. We do have the benefit of 10 megawatts of solar production coming out of the Petronella solar farm. We are looking forward to sometime in the next few months being able to augment that with solar production from Hoggensburg, as well as the benefit of having those batteries to support and sustain the operation. So we're making progress. We need to really engage on the full replacement of the Richmond power plant as we have been funded to do. And so that's a larger conversation that we're having with ODR and our other partners as to how we phase that project. I think we have some concepts as to what we would like to see there as far as generation, but there's some planning and a lot of legwork. We want to make sure that we do this the right way. The Richmond power plant is a hodgepodge of development over the years. There's a real opportunity to start from the ground up and design the power plant as we would want to see it designed for optimum performance, including the types of units that we put in that power plant. And I should also suggest that there's also an opportunity to do green fields and look at generation outside of the boundaries of the Richmond power plant, which is also a very promising opportunity on the island of St. Croix as well.
You know that if you're personally upset with me, you don't have to make everyone on 10B pay, right? we can shut my meter off. We can do lots of things.
I try to tell them, make sure, you know, if the 10B goes down, just make sure we find a way to keep power to the commissioner's home. I haven't figured that part out, but yeah,
No, you have not, actually.
We do have some redundancy coming on feeder 8B into Frederickstead with the underground system. And we continue to make system improvements, and I am hoping, unfortunately, you're not my only customer on 10B, and so I hear it from a lot of those customers, some who have just taken it as par for the course, but we are working on that feeder to see how we can improve reliability on that specific feeder.
Thank you.
I actually have one question on this subject, if I might. I understand both units 23 and 27 are substantially derated at the moment and that they cannot reach their normal. Is unit 27 being offline now for a significant maintenance to help restore that operation?
Unit 27, yeah, it's down for some significant maintenance. So we are, I think we have a part, the part that we need. We're trying to secure our contractor to do the maintenance work. So
will it be partially or fully restored in its rating or at following this maintenance?
No, we will restore it to availability. I think we were getting, about 20 megawatts from 27. I don't know if you have the cheat sheet there, but it is due for a major. We have some decisions to make on what sort of investment we make on unit 27. Unit 27 and unit 23 will probably be with us for a while longer, but we do have a prudent replacement project to replace retired units 14 and to ultimately retire unit 15. We have sort of made some preliminary decisions on what we're going to be procuring. We're looking at about 30 megawatts of generation and some additional battery storage to replace those 2 units. And once that project comes to fruition, there'll be some questions. You know, the question is, how much investment do we make in the legacy units between now and then? Do we just keep them running, or do we really take them down and do the majors? What's the best investment, considering the fact that we have 7 new or fairly new auxiliary engines, and the opportunity to put in another at least 30 megawatts that we're targeting of generation on St. Thomas. We do have, we are kind of working through those issues right now.
Thank you, sir. Next item, docket 703, Wapper Deferred Energy Balance.
I think I can short circuit this discussion a bit, if I might. Ms. Kelly and I have had a few communications over the last month regarding the requested information. We spoke as recently as yesterday and maybe. Anyway, we have a meeting scheduled with Ms. Kelly and I tomorrow morning to go over a fair amount of this information. And I will be happy to provide the commission with an update over the next couple of weeks. So we don't have to wait till your next meeting to get you more information, but we have no filing as of today.
I do have just basic questions on deferred, just put some on the board. What are you carrying on your balance sheet right now, the deferred fuel balance,
As of last month, it was $139 million.
increasing each month? Okay. If you have the information available, what was the total aggregate amount of public subsidy that you received, I guess, coming forward from ARPA at least?
I apologize.
I don't want to quote the governor in the
Yeah,
newspapers because
I
that
don't-
frequently is wrong.
I don't
but yeah.
have that number on the top of my
Okay.
head, but I can get that to you.
Yeah, we can get that to you. Some of it is clearly fuel subsidies, some of the assistance we've gotten, particularly during the state of emergency, some of it was vendor payments. So we need to disaggregate the portions that were for assistance with vendor payments versus the portions that went directly to fuel.
I think there'll be some questions as to whether or not the commission cares that you disaggregate that.
Well, as it relates to
Because we view it as additional revenue without respect to how you want to characterize it. I'm not saying that I represent the position of the commission, but I'm really interested in the big numbers right now, just so we have a sense of, as we go into this discussion, what we're talking about. 140, maybe 100 million in aggregate subsidy, I think was the last number that got kicked out.
So I want to be clear though, right? So if we're talking at the conversations about the deferred fuel balance, there was support that we've received over the years to assist us with fuel, which should count against that deferred fuel balance. In other words, under recovered, we weren't able to make that actual fuel expense, but we received subsidy to make that expense. There's other amounts that was passed over to the authority that were not directed at fuel. Those had to do with things like hurricane preparedness and purchase of spare parts and other things that had nothing to do with the deferred fuel balance. So I just want to make sure that we're clear, at least the commissioners are clear that there's a larger number, but when we are having the conversation on deferred fuel balance, that's a different.
So, and I'd like to be clear that in the commission's accounting, as you know, the math, the accounting gets a little more complicated when you open up that second basket of subsidies, because we have to understand where you have collected, over collected, under collected, then both at the base rate level. So to the extent, I'll put a pure hypothetical out there that I'm almost certain is not true. Let's just say you've collected perfectly against the electric base rate portion of rates, and that your estimation of sales on which that rate is calculated was almost perfectly accurate. So you got everything out of base rate, you're supposed to get and nothing more. At that point, additional dollars that you get are additional revenue to the authority. And it is well within our purview to say, okay, we're going to allocate that against LEAC, which was not even close to being accurate as a metric for you. I'm just putting a hypothetical out there for you to say, the commission looks at this, I'm certain, differently than you might on a pure accounting basis.
Although, thank you, sir. If I may add, Lorraine Kelly, if I may add one distinction, that is a difference between what you might hear on the news media and what you will hear from me as the CFO. And I'll give you an example. There is, in my opinion, a misunderstanding regarding some payments that were made to us in 2020-24. For example, the GVI made payments so that the balances that the waste management and the hospitals owed us were fully paid. Now, in our opinion,
clearly a payment of a receivable, I don't really care.
Right, that was money, we want to disaggregate that so that when we come to you, we've got an appropriate.
Going back to our waste management discussion today, that's all operating revenue to the authority without respect to who paid their bill. I get it, that's fine.
Right, but from that perspective, the point that I would like to make is, from WAPA's perspective, those monies were given from the GVI to waste management so that waste management could pay their bill, not money that was paid to WAPA.
I wouldn't challenge that interpretation at all. So,
but we'll get you those figures.
Yeah, I'm trying to set the table for a broad discussion of what the magnitude of this accommodation we're trying to reach, how it will be arrived at.
Any other questions from commissioners? All right, there's nothing further. Thank you for your testimony and your presentation. Steve. Have any new business from the commission members? None? Motion to this, to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
For acclamation. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Stan. You came to visit us.
Yeah, would have been here hour early. This is a study.
Stratospheric?